Being suave can be difficult, and if you're like me, you're probably pretty socially awkward.
Like 20.
But these particular tricks really helped up my game at social events. I became more suave and more smooth and just felt more confident. And they can help you too. The last tip will not only help you with social skills, it has also been proven to help you master nearly any skill that you desire. Let's start with the more basic tips first, and then we're going to get into the more complex tips and the broader concepts that help tie all these small tips together. Conversations can begin before anyone even speaks whenever you wear conversation starters. This item should be obvious enough to evoke questions about it and be linked to something interesting that you can use to open a conversation. Try wearing a t-shirt with a favorite character on it, carrying an unusual purse you love, or donning an eye-catching pair of glasses that has an interesting backstory. My work here on this channel means the world to me, and these ears have pretty much become the icon of this channel. Whenever I wear these in public, I get asked questions and I get so many comments, and that opens up easy conversation about something that I obviously have a lot to say about. And once the ice is broken talking about something you love, then it's just polite to ask, what do you enjoy doing? What are you passionate about? From there, an easy and meaningful conversation can begin for both of you. Okay, it sounds so cliche to tell you to listen, but you would be surprised how many don't listen very well. And yes, I'm guilty of this too. Even now, I can get so wrapped up in where the conversation is going and what I'm going to say next, then I kind of forget to pay attention to what other people are saying. I think all of us are guilty of this at some point. And let's even go a step further. Listen dynamically. This means immersing yourself in another person's point of view. Please note that this does not mean that you have to agree with the other person's point of view. It simply means that you seek to understand. You can learn about another's cares, needs, desires, weaknesses, fears, general viewpoint of life, by thinking about what they have said and reading between the lines, pondering the implications of their words. And a quick heads up, a few tips that are coming in a few minutes are going to build upon dynamic listening, so we're going to touch upon this skill a bit later in this video. As you listen, give affirming feedback. When someone is talking to you, this means that you nod, you chuckle, you smile, you raise your eyebrows, and you say things like, really? What exactly you do moment to moment just depends upon the context. If someone says that they sprained their ankle last week, I would definitely opt for an aw and not a chuckle. I think common sense is going to tell you when you should do what.
Just go with your gut on this one.
If you're on the phone, obviously go for sound and word affirmations because they cannot see you. If they can see you, either one works, either visual or audible. But personally, I prefer the silent cues, the visual ones like nods and smiles and gestures and expressions whenever I can actually see someone and they can see me, because it just keeps from interrupting them whenever they're talking. Not only does affirming feedback let the other person know that you are listening, but also there is nothing more awkward than just staring deeply into someone's soul as they talk, with no expression and no movement. On the topic of staring, eye contact. Also sounds basic, but it's basic for a reason. It's important. Eye contact with the speaker is very affirming, though do try to blink. Again, staring without blinking is kind of unnerving. If you're talking to a whole group, take turns making eye contact. I found that I would say 3 seconds is a good rule of thumb for how long you should look at everyone in the group whenever you're taking turns. It's not enough to just stare someone down and make them uncomfortable, but it is enough just to acknowledge their presence and let them know that they are a part of the group. Tip 3, gesticulate. Am I the only one who thinks this word sounds a little bit gross? Maybe it's just me. Gesticulate just means to use gestures to emphasize your words. Use big gestures during high emotional points, and use more subdued and calm gestures whenever you're talking about nuances and addressing details and in a calm frame of mind. This not only keeps people's attention, but it also makes you far more charismatic, and it makes your speaking and the topic far more memorable for everybody listening to you. I have found that another way of showing sincerity and keeping people's attention as you talk is to let yourself feel your own emotions. If this sounds weird, it means letting yourself tear up during a sad story.
The science is impossible.
Really smile and laugh at a funny joke. And let the fire burn in your eyes whenever you're really talking about something that you are passionate about.
Smoldering intensity.
We humans are emotional creatures. Genuine feelings draw us in. The only time I do recommend holding back your true emotions is whenever somebody makes you angry. If that happens, it's best to calmly just back up and have some time by yourself as you calm down, because showing full anger in the moment often leads to you making bad decisions, the other person getting defensive, and usually anger from them in return. Also say to be fully engrossed whenever you are thinking about something. A pause to think says you are forming a thought that is worth hearing, thus building emotional suspense of everyone listening and holding their attention. Hands in thinking position, tilt eyes upward, and lean forward if possible. This is what I prefer to do whenever I'm showing that I'm thinking, and here is why I like these positional cues. An iconic thinking position with your hands communicates, yes, I am thinking right now. Because if people don't realize that you are thinking about something, and therefore are about to say something once you've formulated that thought, then they might jump right in and take that moment whenever you really wanted the spotlight in a few moments. In other words, it holds your spot in a conversation. I advise tilting your eyes away from the people that you're talking to and not making eye contact during that thinking period, because it's going to result in what I've talked about before, the staring. Because who hasn't seen someone look at them while they're thinking and just, this is what it looks like. Leaning forward communicates that you are still in the conversation, even if you are silent for a few beats to formulate your thoughts. And I find that it also implies that you are about ready to take the stage. I do have something to say. Now, one variation of this formula adds a little bit more emphasis for holding your place in the conversation. Instead of a thinking position, a lifted finger. Now, don't thrust it up quickly. That seems pretty rude. Just gently raise it up right before you pause, and it'll just hold your spot while you think. Now, it may not prevent interruptions 100% of the time, but generally speaking, I found it to work really well. I'm terrible at giving compliments. I just don't usually think to verbalize what it is that I like about someone, and even if I do, I normally have this feeling of the other person thinks that I'm just sucking up or trying to flatter them for some reason. And honestly, many of my friends also seem awkward receiving a direct compliment.
Thank you. And you look so clean.
So a method that I really like to use is implied compliments. Implied compliments are statements that imply something nice instead of being very direct about what it is you like. So here are a few examples. Oh my goodness, you have got to tell me where you shop. You're just the person that I wanted to see. I have got to hear some sane words spoken in this crazy workplace. There was one time that I had to use an implied compliment for an embarrassing social save. I was talking to a college friend about sunglasses, and I remarked, I don't really want aviator glasses. And he replied,
Why not? I wear aviators all the time.
Already this is implying that he has bad taste. So I had to think fast, and I was like, yeah, but you can pull aviators off. I can't. Not only did this statement clarify what I meant, which is that aviator glasses, that style just doesn't work for my face very well. It definitely was not meant to be a diss to the style in itself. It's just I can't pull them off. This last example takes some fast thinking, but trust me, the more you do it, the faster you are going to get at thinking of what to say spur of the moment. Implied compliments have the advantage of seeming far more natural than direct compliments, and usually natural seems a bit more sincere as opposed to forced, can feel pretty insincere, honestly. Plus, if you are trying to compliment someone who feels a little bit awkward accepting compliments, then indirect compliments is definitely the way to go. Usually people are not put on the spot by indirect compliments as much as direct ones. But I would also like to note that I think it's a good skill just to get more comfortable giving direct compliments, because first off, some people really like compliments. That is what makes them feel appreciated and good about themselves. And then there are people who really don't catch implication, so if you want to compliment them, you're gonna have to be direct. Okay, so going places and doing things that you like doesn't really sound like a social tactic, but this tip puts you in the position to be around like-minded people that you're really going to connect with and you're going to want to form friendships with in the first place. Plus, going places and doing things that you enjoy is going to put you in your element and make you genuinely happy. And whenever you're genuinely happy and enjoying the moment, people are going to sense that and be more naturally drawn to you, and you're going to have to put forth a whole lot less effort in trying to make people approach you. They're just going to approach you because they enjoy the energy you have. Now, that does not mean that you should only go places or do things that you know you already like. Sometimes you want to explore new interests, or someone that you know is going to want you to try something that they like. When you're out there trying new things, fully embrace the experience. Committing to trying something with 100% commitment and gusto gives you the best chance of really enjoying it. And anyone who wanted you to try this activity or go this new place, they're going to appreciate it because they will be able to tell that you are genuinely giving their interests a chance. And even if you decide that you hated it, at least you did give it a fair chance. Have you ever done something and then people around you completely misinterpreted what that meant and maybe even got offended by it whenever that wasn't even what you were meaning? Crossing our arms seems like closed off body language, but what if you're just cold? A common one for me is I tend to go quiet because I start getting tired. I am a big time introvert, and whenever I'm around people too much, the first thing that goes is social energy. I don't know what to say anymore. And here's the thing, I really don't want people to misinterpret as being unfriendly or being disinterested. My favorite way to handle this is to lampshade the behavior. By lampshading, I mean addressing ambiguous, awkward, or seemingly inappropriate behavior by explaining your reason for it before others have time to misinterpret it. When I am cold and I'm crossing my arms, I might exaggerate my movement and say something like, "Is anyone else freezing to death in here?" And here's an extra bonus tip. For example, I really want to visit Florida again. It is so much warmer there. This opens up the possibility of discussing travels, great vacations you've had, maybe climates that everyone likes. It's a little more than just saying I'm cold and leaving it at that. Gives you a few options, especially if these are people you're not really well acquainted with yet. I'm personally an advocate of letting people around you choose if they want to take that cue and shift the conversation to that, but at least it does open the door for the possibility of shifting, especially if the conversation is running dry anyway. And even if the conversation isn't running dry in that moment, it really makes a great hook for later because someone might remember what you said whenever the conversation is starting to kind of lag. And then they could pick it up again and ask you about what your trip to Florida was like. Now, in the case of losing social energy, I actually like to take that common occurrence and use it to relate to others. I normally like to just say something like, I promise you I'm still listening, my introvert battery is just kind of running low. If I'm among extroverts, this is a little bit more awkward because they don't always understand introvert problems, but at least the extroverts that I'm with are going to understand the real reason and not make false assumptions. Some of the more understanding ones will take the lead on the conversation and help it to keep flowing instead of it just falling short because they think I'm not interested. But if I'm around other introverts, and most of my friends are, then this could be a me too type of moment. That seems like maybe a weird thing to bond over, but it's extremely refreshing to know that someone else might have a similar tendency, and you are not going to think badly about each other for it. We don't have to put on a facade. So discussing our weaknesses and tendencies is actually a really good way to delve further into understanding each other. And do you remember how I said that we would touch upon dynamic listening again? If you have been closely listening to not only what people say, but also reading between the lines and getting implications from their words, then you'll have some pretty good ideas of what to say in your lampshade that are going to foster even deeper understanding and connection. But please note, please do not lampshade something gross or extremely inappropriate and think that the lampshade is going to excuse it. If you are cold or you're tired, that's one thing. But if you, say, have an itch in an awkward place, please don't take care of it in front of everybody and then expect a lampshade to pardon the behavior. Please just use some common sense on what is and is not okay to use the lampshade on. I call this habit of throwing out tidbits that other people can relate to baiting the conversation. You can do this even if you're not lampshading a behavior too. For example, instead of just saying I like this restaurant, I might say something like, I used to eat here so often whenever I went on academic team trips in high school. This one extra tidbit of info opened so many doors. What was academic team like? Why did you get on academic team? What kind of things did you like ordering at this restaurant whenever you've been here before? What was your high school experience in general like? And it may not even be questions. It could just be other people talking about what clubs they were on in high school, what high school was like, maybe they were on academic team too. There's really a lot of directions that this could go, and that is wonderful to have options. And again, dynamic listening is going to be so wonderfully helpful for knowing how to bait the conversation. Now, if a topic starts to run dry in a conversation and it starts to get a little awkward, here's my failsafe. Mention what the current or a recent topic reminds you of. If you think about it, nearly anything can remind you of anything. Our minds are these big cobwebs of associations. So this gives you permission to bring up any topic, as long as you can make it clear why your mind jumped from one topic to another. A few notes on how to use this one. One, if it's not really clear why one topic reminded you of another, you're going to want to explain your reasoning. It might seem just a little bit obscure without that, if it's too broad a jump. Two, don't overuse this. Using it too often and for too large of jumps can start to make the conversation feel kind of oddly disjointed. 3, don't abuse this trick and use it to steer the conversation repeatedly toward your life and your interests. You can sometimes, but try to take others' viewpoints and interests into consideration too whenever you make a jump. So lots of these tips do require some amount of practice to get them down, but you will make mistakes and say awkward things when you're practicing.
I like your eyes.
Well, thank you. They came with the face.
So how can you get in your practice and make the necessary mistakes during practice before you actually have to go into high-stakes situations, like maybe a date you really want to impress or a job interview? Coming out of quarantine, I felt so rusty. But I knew that before I went off to the Feast of Tabernacles and before I got together with relatives at Thanksgiving, I didn't want to be rusty whenever I went and met with people who mean a lot to me. So I started practicing in low-stakes situations, chatting with cashiers and bank tellers, joking around with the waiters at restaurants, bantering with salespeople. If you say something embarrassing, yeah, it's gonna be a little awkward, but it's not really going to leave lasting consequences on your social life. Anyone that you don't intend to have lasting connection with, they're pretty safe to practice on. Now, this last tip has been scientifically supported as a wonderful tool for mastering nearly any skill. And I have actually been doing this for years just because it's fun. This tip is visualization. This means just picturing yourself doing the skill that you want. Rehearse it in your head. Picture every part of, in this case for a social skill, an interaction. This doesn't mean that everything in your head is going to go as planned, but the more you do this, the more you just get comfortable with the idea of socializing, and sometimes you come up with some good jokes or some good banter, some good topics whenever you do go into a social situation. A lot of psychology has actually shown that our mind responds to an imagined scenario almost as if it's a real scenario. That's how come whenever you're thinking about, say, your boss firing you, you can feel just as stressed just thinking about that as if it were actually happening. So you can rehearse things in your head, so it's going to get you more comfortable and warmed up. There have actually been times whenever I have run into scenarios very much like how I pictured them in my head. And the more you do it, the more statistically you are going to have things happen that you visualized in your head. Social skills are going to take practice, just like any other type of skill does. So please keep this in mind. Embarrassment is hard, but it is not fatal. I used to feel that it was fatal whenever I still had more anxiety about talking to people, but I can assure you it's not. Please don't fear making mistakes. Only fear not learning from your mistakes. But what happens when you make a mistake and it turns into something like a social conflict? Well, conflict resolution is a far deeper branch of social skills than just conversation starters. But this video right here is going to give you so much of what you need to peacefully resolve conflicts and go forward from the conflict with an even healthier relationship.